She didn't want to, but she was like, that would make her day. And it would. paper in here somewhere, and I don't know where it went. I don't know. Do you want Ross to? Here, and you can just lean it up in here, and I might have Rob get up to it. Okay, let me. I'm gonna like sit off to the side.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. We are about to get started, and we have a special guest that we would like to welcome to help lead us in the pledge, a graduate of Cactus High School. Please welcome Julia Connect. We're going to stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. At this moment, we have to proceed with convening a public hearing pursuant to ARS 15-948C and D and 15-905D to review revision to number 1 to the expenditure budget, including the maintenance and operations and district additional assistance, formerly capital outlay and unrestricted capital budgets for 2018, 2019. Board, I need a motion to convene, and we're going to proceed with a voice vote.
I move to convene in a public hearing.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Ms. Myers, welcome.
Thank you. Well, good evening. President Sehar Martinez, members of the governing board. Mrs. Pellis Thompson, this evening I will present information regarding the first revision to the fiscal 2019 operating budget for the Peoria Unified School District. Tonight, I will review the requirements related to budget revisions, as well as highlight the main changes with the operating budget, specifically maintenance and operations, district additional assistance, and classroom site fund. One of the 4 perspectives of the district's strategic plan is the stewardship of community resources. The annual budget process is part of this strategic perspective to solidify and adhere to effective policies, practices, and accountability for district resources. A public school district must adopt an annual expenditure budget each year by July 15th and can revise the budget in December and May of the fiscal year. This budget revision is being presented tonight to allow the district to include carry-forward balances from fiscal 18 in our current year budget. Each year in July, Peoria Unified adopts an annual expenditure budget for maintenance and operations, or M&O expenditures. This fund is where the majority of the daily operations for the Peoria Unified School District are accounted for, and include salaries, employee benefits, supplies, utilities, transportation costs, and other operational expenditures not of a capital nature. In this budget revision, the M&O budget is being increased by $6.1 million to recognize the fiscal 2018 carry-forward amounts and a transfer between capital and maintenance operation funds. District additional assistance funds can be used for capital expenditures that include furniture and fixtures, equipment, textbooks, and instructional aids, as well as computers and software. In this budget revision, the adopted district additional assistance budget is being increased to reflect the fiscal 18 carry-forward amounts net of the transfer to maintenance and operations for a revised budget amount of $6.2 million. The Classroom Site Fund is prescribed by Arizona Revised Statute 15977 and was established in 2002 to account for the portion of the state sales tax collections from the state trust land income provided to school districts as an additional source of funding for teacher salary increases. So the Classroom Site Fund, also known as Prop 301, expenditures are accounted for in three funds that are used for certified salaries as well as performance pay for certified staff and guidance counselors. The budget in this fund is being increased to $20.2 million to reflect prior year carry-forward balances. The budget revision also includes a $1.1 million transfer from M&O to the district's Energy Water Savings Fund for capital lease payments related to energy savings lighting and equipment that has been installed over the last couple of years in the district that has resulted in M&O savings related to utility costs. Further budget alignments for federal and state grants as well as cash-controlled funds will be made in the May 2019 budget revision. Based on the information provided, administration recommends that the governing board approve the budget revision for the fiscal 2018-19 school year.
Thank you very much. At this time, because we are convening a public hearing, anybody can address the item in the public. You will need to get a green slip. I did not receive any green slips for this item. Are there any conversation between governing board members?
I kind of revision.
Excellent. I do need a motion to adjourn public hearing.
I move to adjourn the public hearing.
We have a motion and a second. We'll do a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. We are moving on to address our regular board meeting. Board members, are there any items you would like to adopt or recommend changes?
Mrs. Sejar Martinez, there was only one thing that I think I may have missed on the agenda. Did we have the request for future board items? Is that on the agenda?
It should be. I know I saw it. It is number 12.3.
Okay, thank you. Didn't see it.
All right. It seems that the agenda as presented is in good order. We'll proceed with recognitions. 6.1, staff recognitions.
Good evening, President Seja Martinez, members of the board, Mrs. Pallas Thompson. Last year, our Director of Arts Education began a new program to update some of the older or more dated pieces of artwork that adorn the halls here of our District Administration Center. And of course, what better way to update our walls than to fill them with student artwork, our very, very talented students here across the school district. At the Peoria Arts and Cultural Festival, Peoria Unified purchased student artwork to house as a part of our district's permanent art collection in an effort to give our DAC, as we affectionately refer to it here, a more refreshed look. This also serves as a great reminder to our staff that are within this building who might not always be able to get out to our school sites of the work that we do here in this building each day. The students whose artwork was purchased at the Arts Festival were the winners of the Art Director's Purchase Award. And this evening, not only do we bring forward the fine pieces of artwork that were created by our very own students, but we have invited those young artists here tonight so that you could see the face that goes behind the beautiful pieces of art. So students, when I call your name, and I know many of you are here and probably have families sitting around you that are just beaming in order to have you receive this recognition. Students, when you hear me call your name, if you would please stand and walk over to your piece of artwork that is here on display, because I think we'll then get a photo of you. I'm looking to our arts education director to make sure he's okay with that, if he may have stepped out of the room. Mr. Panzer, is that good? Good plan. Okay. We'll have you stand alongside your art so we can really truly put that face with the name. So if you would make your way over there, Angel Cruz, senior at Peoria High School. And let's give her a round of applause as she makes her walk over there. Joshella Kalanog, junior at Liberty High School, if you'd walk on over to your piece. And students, we'll have you stay standing with your piece, and that way parents, you can get a photo of them next to it if you haven't already, all at once, and then we'll, of course, want to get a group shot as well. Carolina Lopez, freshman at Cactus High School. And just a quick note that she attended Foothills Fine Arts Academy at the time that her artwork was selected. So we do want to make that note. Tara Zortman, freshman at Ironwood High School. Elementary school last year when we went ahead and selected that piece. Claire Ramey, second grader at Coyote Hills Elementary School. I think Claire is our youngest shining star over there, so some proud parents, I'm sure. Michael Rolfs, fourth grade student at Heritage Elementary School. And one other student that wasn't able to be here with us tonight, graduate from our district. So Janet Gallegos, a 2018 graduate of Raymond S. Kellis High School, is the other piece of artwork that you see over there. I know we've got some administrators here from our schools that are very proud as well. If you could stand so we could give you a round of applause. Our principals and assistant principals, I saw many of you here. Dr. Benson, see Mr. Smith. Thank you very much. And I know parents, if you want to get a photo, if you didn't get one yet of your student, please feel free to walk over and take a photo. It's your moment to make sure to capture that. And I know we'll get a group shot of them down the line just as soon as you clear. But please take your time, take all the photos that you'd like of your student over there. And you can, of course, share those all over social media, as we hope that you do, and use hashtag Peoria Unified Pride, and that way we can also share those and that beautiful work. Very proud parents. I'm going to invite Mr. Panzer to join me up here as they're kind of taking their shots. And I think we have some of our arts educators that are here with us as well. If you would stand so we can give you a big round of applause for what you do in the classroom to inspire. We know that our students have some incredible talents, but you certainly help to nurture and inspire, and so we appreciate all that you do to our arts educators. Well, at this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Panzer, to our governing board.
Thank you, Mrs. Airy. Good evening, President Ceja Martinez and the members of the governing board and Mrs. Pallas Thompson. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. This is an incredible thing, and I think one of the things that makes this so special is this has been something that we've had artwork in the building for many, many years, and we're very excited to be expanding the collection and growing it with our newest and some of our youngest students as well. One of the things that I think Mrs. Airy started to spotlight, but I want to just expand a little bit, is the idea that we have 37,000 students creating artwork within our district. And at our Arts and Cultural Festival, we have about 4,000 pieces of artwork on display that one day. So these 7 pieces of artwork that were selected from that is a pretty special thing to be happening. And we're very excited to be having that on display here for many years to come for our community as well as for our staff and our governing board to enjoy for many years. It's something that we're continuing and we're planning to continue into the future, and we look forward to the 2019 Arts and Cultural Festival where we'll be selecting another batch of artwork. It's something very exciting in this district, the way that the arts are handled, and I certainly thank you for your support and would be happy to answer any questions or field anything you have about the artwork or about any of the artists or any of the programming we have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Panzer and family, and definitely students. We'll go ahead and start off with Ms. Connect.
Congratulations, students. I was out there at the festival and so many good things to see, amazing. But I'm going to take this moment to congratulate you, Mr. Panzer. You are such a modest man, but you are the hardest working, most dedicated advocate for our students in the arts. And I've watched this school district shine across the country for the things that our students can produce. And so thank you. Wonderful seeds have been planted for the arts as far back as Julia Smock, former board member. And Dr. Benson is here, and you have carried on so very well and given these kids the opportunity to express themselves and to show the world the beauty that they can create. So congratulations to all of you, and to you too, Mr. Panzer.
Thank you, Mrs. Connect. And if you think about it, with what the arts do in the future is what we exactly need. We need students who are able to critically think and solve problems, and that's what our art educators and our art students are doing across
Trial
the
and
district.
error, it's communication,
Absolutely.
it's all those things, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Pangarelli.
Oh, I just want to say congratulations and thank you for being here. We are going to enjoy this for years to come. So thank you.
Mr. Sandoval.
No, agreed, and you mirror those comments. And, we always talk about, all of our programs, and, and it's always inspiring to see the fruits, of this program, specifically in this case, the arts, and how they certainly nurture the creativity of our students, right? Not only in a way from a visual perspective, but also the values and character that are instilled in our students, and put them in a position to be successful, as they, leave our walls, if you will. So congratulations to each and every one of you. It's great work. To the young artists, it's amazing to see, what you've kind of brought to life creatively. So congratulations.
Ms. Doan.
Yes, congratulations, and congratulations to you. I just want to say, I know being in school all day sometimes makes your head hurt and gives you, it's a feeling of having to always obey the rules. Math is very rule-oriented. Science is very rule-oriented. But when you get to go to art class, you get to make your own rules a lot of the time. And that's a beautiful thing. And the world always has room for some more beauty. So thank you so much.
And I'm just going to add, just please continue to share your love for the arts with the world, because we do appreciate it, and it's a value that adds to everybody's lives. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And students, we'll go ahead and let you come back and sit with your families. Let's give them one more round of applause. In their seats, I might point out, President Ceja Martinez, you heard Mr. Panzer reference the Peoria Arts and Cultural Festival, and that is taking place this year on March 30th. Saturday, March 30th. I'm looking for the nods for the people that keep that calendar. And so we'll be welcoming hopefully another 16,000 members of our community to Old Town Peoria for that. I should mention that that happens because of the work of the Peoria Education Foundation, because that event is a fundraiser to support arts education in our school district. It happens because of our foundation. We have 3 members of our foundation who have joined us this evening. The president, Mrs. Tamara Caraway, as well as the treasurer, Ms. Nadina Fish. And we also have Ms. Julia Smock, who has served on that board in a number of different capacities, but they are incredible advocates for the arts as well. So thank you to our foundation for what you do. And then, Mrs. Ceja Martinez, we do have one additional recognition that I'd like to share this evening. Hopefully, many of you that have joined us here in the district office had an opportunity to attend our reception just before we stepped into the meeting in honor of Mrs. Kathy Connect and her 12 years of service on our governing board and to our community. I just want to thank Cactus High School. You heard them out there with a beautiful music that they were sharing for us this evening. That was Mr. Brian Evans that was leading them tonight. So a big thank you to Cactus for joining us for the reception this evening. And just wanted to take a quick moment to touch on some of the accomplishments of Mrs. Connect and some of the contributions that she has given to our district in the last 12 years. She joined our board January of 2007, and as I mentioned, served our community for 12 years. During her time, she's supported us in a number of different ways, served on the calendar committee, served on the City of Peoria Education Committee when they were meeting frequently, the Valley Schools Insurance Trust Board, served as board president, as well as 4 different terms as clerk of the governing board. That's not all. Her list does go on and on. It's quite exhausting, actually, if you read through the pages of what she has accomplished. But 12 years, you can do quite a bit. But she helped to launch the district's first community legislative network, an advocacy organization to support our district and public education. She has also served as an ex officio member of the Peoria Education Foundation. Her commitment and dedication to public education hasn't stopped here in our community as nationally. She has served on served on committee for the National School Boards Association. She has also served 5 terms on the Arizona School Boards Association Board of Directors, which of course peaked in 2016 when she served as president. So she certainly has dedicated 12 years to our community and certainly to giving back to support the mission of public education. Just want to note that even before she ended up here behind the dais, education was something that was critically important to her. And in fact, she chose the Peoria Unified School District many years ago for her 2 daughters, particularly drawn to the arts education program here in our community. And I know she's got some family that is here tonight, and so I hope I don't steal her thunder by taking a quick moment to make sure that you know that they're here. Mr. Tom Connect, her husband, and Julia Connect, one of her daughters, was able to join us tonight. And so both her daughters, both of her daughters, I know, proud graduates of the Peoria Unified School District. So Mrs. Connect, I won't continue to go on and on with that long list of accomplishments, but I know on behalf of the district, we want to thank you so very much for your service, for your commitment and your dedication. Certainly, we know that you have given so much to support us. I had an opportunity, in fact, to talk to Mrs. Connect about the achievement that she is most proud of here in our district, and you can probably think of many, many times that she sat behind this dais and there were a number of different decisions and potentially even, some controversial things in our community that came up from time to time. 2 things stood out to me from what she shared. That I will share with you. One of which is that she sat as a board member during a tumultuous time that our board was having to discuss closing our schools for safety reasons and in order to protect our students, make sure that they're not leaving and some potential injuries during lunchtime. So I know that was certainly a challenging time that she had to sit there, and that stands out. A second one that she'll recall is serving on the board to vote to save our old main building. And many of you are familiar with Old Main. It sits right in the middle of Peoria High School. I'm seeing some nods from those in the audience, maybe who either attended there or are familiar with that site, but it's now been refurbished and is serving students in a very unique way. As a token of our appreciation, we have a little something for you, Mrs. Connect, and if I could have you come around to the front of the dais. And Mr. Panzer, if I could have you help me with this presentation. Mrs. Palace Thompson, if you would maybe come and join so that we can snap a photo as well. I know you saw the back side of this picture, and we'll have Mr. Panzer bring it up. He is the artist behind this, but many of you had an opportunity to sign this for Mrs. Connect tonight. If you flip that around, you will see on the other side a really unique picture of Old Main, and it's how it was originally in 1922, blending into how it now stands today. So that is almost an original. It's actually the second print ever made. So Mrs. Connect, we present that to you and hope you will hang that proudly to remember us and your service on this board.
Ups and downs, but at the end of the day, our kids are learning and going on to do great things. I asked you not to do this.
But you know me too well. Yes, well, thank you for your service. We appreciate you. Mrs. Ceja Martinez, if I could, I just have a couple other quick recognitions to share with you that I wanted to make sure didn't go unnoticed.
Do you mind, just real quick, if the board can address?
Oh,
or
sure.
Speak to Ms. Connect. First, I would like to take this moment. Yes, you served on the board for 12 years, but before we do that, I want to thank the family. The amount of time that you've sacrificed without your mom and not having dinner ready or having to make dinner and picking up, having school-age children, what you have sacrificed for our community, it takes a family effort. And so I want to say thank you. Thank you so much.
Julia, what grade were you in when I started? Third grade.
Yeah. Yes, and I have a fourth grader now, so he's walking through your shoes you've already lived, so thank you. Everybody, thank you for joining us this evening to celebrate this woman who's dedicated 12 years of her life to the Peoria School Board. And as I mentioned, because I'm a mother, a wife, and a daughter, I do understand the sacrifices, the time, and the commitment you have given to our community, and for that I'm so grateful. When you first started, it was in my first year of teaching. We crossed paths in 2013 when you were a mentor and an advocate in the Peoria United Parent Council. And with your example and influence, I chose to run for school board, so thank you for that. The first 5 years has passed, as a result of your influence, I serve here and our children, our students, and both we can agree on it. There are children, all 37,000 plus. Thank you again for your time and dedication, and thank you for all that you've done for our district. Mr. Sandoval, would you like to start us off, or do you want to wait? And then we'll go if you guys want to address.
Sure.
Okay.
So I met Kathy back in 2016. I was at Old Main with a client, and she was there with a couple other board members, and so found out that my children went through PUSD. My wife did as well, and then I had a son at Sunrise Mountain. So she went on to ask if I'd consider sitting on the conduit between the district and the community, which is the Peoria United Parent Council, PUPC. So little did I know, I think she had this in her mind, because months later she asked me to run for the entire board. And we joke every once in a while, because she'll ask if I'm upset at her for making me run for the school board. And my response is always absolutely not. It is an honor to sit on this board, but I think for me, I am truly grateful, for what you saw in me to sit in this seat. I'm grateful for your friendship and your kind heart, and just such a great example to our students as it relates to commitment, dedication, because everything you do is with both feet, and your heart's always in the right place. So I will say this, we are in a better place, and as a district, and certainly as a community for having you in it every day. So thank you.
Thank you, David.
Ms. Stone?
Well, Kathy, I would like to thank you for your passion for the education system and all that goes with that. I'd like to thank you for helping me when I was new and schooling me on a few of the things that I needed to learn. I'd like to thank you for the time you have spent and given to your community, our community. And I'd like to, I'd like to share how amazed I am with the energy you have and have put forth in all this. It's very inspiring, and I appreciate that, and the time and the things you go to. I can't go to half of. I appreciate that you have done that and put forth so much effort, and the passion that you feel for education is visible. And I thank you for that, and I really wish you well in whatever your next endeavors are going to be. Thank you.
Ms. Pangarelli?
Wow, Kathy, I can't top that at all. I want to thank you for your past 12 years, your absolute commitment to public education. And for me personally, sitting here with you, you have made me a better board member. So I appreciate that.
Let's have a meeting.
Okay. Ms. Airy, thank you very much.
And thank you again, Mrs. Connect. And I know because you want us to get back to focusing on all the kid things, I just have a couple of quick kid things to share. You all hopefully know by now that Centennial High School won the state championship yet again in football. So we were so pleased to see that. They are going to go on to compete in a bowl game, so we wanted to make sure to share that. The Geico Bowl at home, December 22nd at 8:30 p.m. It's actually going to be aired nationally, so it will be televised nationally on ESPNU. We'll make sure to send that out to the board so you can catch it on there. But of course, very excited about that, and big congratulations to Centennial High School. You may not know, but Peoria City Council was also recently celebrating the arts. So they celebrated 27 talented Peoria Unified students at their 6th exhibition of young artists. So I know the mayor recognized them just last week. So another opportunity to highlight the arts in our community, which we're always just thrilled of. Vistancia Elementary School, also in way of the arts, their 6th grade choir performed at the Arizona State Capitol, and happenstance, Governor Ducey stopped by to listen to them as well. So that was kind of a neat surprise for our students, and certainly they enjoyed that. One final quick piece to update you on, and that's our MET project students. So you know our MET Professional Academy from over there in the old main building. One of their teams made it to the final round in the Samsung Solve Tomorrow STEM competition. Each state had only 5 winners, so it was pretty incredible that MET made it into one of those slots. So just wanted to make sure to share that with you all this evening. Thank you.
Excellent, and we will move forward to 6.2, board recognitions. Mr. Sandoval, since we're off to a good start, you want to take this one?
Sure. Well, Danielle, thank you. You took all of my recognitions for this evening. No. So just to piggyback on when Danielle was talking about the mayoral and city council young arts program, it is a pleasure to be a partner of the city They certainly enhance the student experience and help us become better and going from good to great as a district. But I also want to recognize Dr. Davidson and his team. They were recognized for the involvement and really engagement, as it relates to health and wellness at this year's Valley Schools. I think it was a holiday luncheon, if I'm not mistaken. But one of the things that we talk about, as a district is, world-class really benefits, but creating these safe and supportive environments, for our associates and certainly our students, but, integrating programs that, enhance the health and wellness, of our teachers and staff, is critical to not only, keeping individuals in the classroom, but just promoting, health and wellness, as a whole. So, I want to thank you and your team, for your dedication for always looking out, for our associates, not only from, their benefits packages, but also some of those, I'm going to use the term wraparound services, that we use with our students. So thank you.
Ms. Stone?
I don't really have any recognitions tonight, but I would like to say Merry Christmas and thank you to everyone, all the staff, teachers, students, and it's a lot of work that takes to make this district run. So I appreciate it, and I hope that everyone has a really good holiday season, not just Christmas Day, but the season is very enjoyable, and please be safe. It's murder on those highways.
Thank you. Ms. Pingrelli?
Nothing tonight.
Ms. Connect?
Just two things. One, I was remiss a couple months ago to recognize Chicanos por la Causa, which picks out a variety of a couple different schools every year, and treats the kids and their families from those schools to a Diamondbacks game. And our very own Peoria Elementary School was the recipient of that, and I think it was in October. Time flies. I've been busy. But so I want to say that Chicanos por la Causa is very generous and a wonderful partner for us to explore further. They do great community development and support, and we're really grateful for that experience that they provided for our kids and their families. And then the other thing, I know it sounds like it's a long way away, but the Peoria Education Foundation has their Education Visionary Award ceremony on Monday, April 22nd. So mark your calendars now. That is our one big fundraising event where we raise tens of thousands of dollars that we turn back to teachers for grants and for our students for scholarships. And we're very proud to have that opportunity to support our kids and our teachers. And if you can't make the event, or even if you can make the event and you know of somebody who has a great item to donate to the fundraiser, get with me or with Danielle, and we're happy to include that in our fundraising efforts. It's a really wonderful, good feeling to be able to do that for kids and teachers. That's all.
Thank you. I also have two items. First, I want to acknowledge Miss Abbott at the Peoria Flex Academy. She had reached out, and the things that she's doing to teach our students about financial literacy and in relation to their first job. I went and had created dialogue around 401k contributions, and the kids ate it up and they wanted to eat more, learn more about it. So that was very exciting to attend. Also, I wanted to say thank you to Paseo Verde, Mr. Stutzman. He took a team. Arizona Department of Education hosted a emergency preparedness conference, and Mr. Stutzman took a proactive approach to attend and take a team, not just the administration, but some staff members to really get some insight. It was reassuring to know that what we're doing here aligns directly and surpasses the expectations of where we're headed in student safety and well-being. So I wanted to make sure and acknowledge I appreciate that proactive approach. And Ms. Linda Vallis-Thompson.
Mrs. Sejas Martinez, I'm fine, actually. Mrs. Airy, I handed over my recognitions to her.
Thank you. Number 7.1, request to address governing board items not included on the agenda. The green slips that I have do pertain to items, so we will, unless we have any more, we're in good order to continue. Number 8, consent agenda. Governing board members, are there any items that want to be pulled?
I would like to pull 8.18.
I would like to pull 8.19 and 8.20. Any others?
20. 20.
Consent calendar. Or 8.19 is developer assistance agreement.
It was moved.
Monica, this is printed off the district website.
Right.
It's different than this.
Okay,
Oh, they're already removed? Oh, gotcha.
okay.
Great.
Okay, so you've already removed them and put them in that item? Okay, thank you. So I need a motion to approve the consent agenda item minus the 3 items. 8.18, 8.19, 8.20. So Beverly's and Ms. Pingrelli's and then mine too.
I move to approve the consent agenda minus 8.18, 8.19, and 8.20.
We have a motion by Ms. Pingrelli and a second by Ms. Connect. Are we okay with the voice vote so we can continue? Oh, awesome. Everybody vote? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, and we'll proceed with Ms. Pingarelli's request for external research, a case study on American college testing in Southwestern Urban School District.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I pulled this item because I have asked in the past, and I would like to see, as an individual board member, I think it's very important that research that is being conducted in our schools, on our students or artifacts, should be at least a brief presentation to the public so that the school sites and parents can be aware of what's going on in their schools. So that's why I pulled it. And then also, there's one check mark on it that the letter of approval regarding human subjects research from affiliated institutions, there's a note, cannot obtain until IRB has district approval. I didn't know the district was approving, had an IRB? Or is this, all the paperwork doesn't seem to be there. Mr. Moss?
Ms. A.L. Martinez and Ms. Pingarelli, I can answer those questions for you.
Sure,
certainly.
thank you.
Ms. Parham is a teacher at Raymond S. Kellis High School, and she is doing the subjects on just in comparison with a control group from another school. There is no information gathered from students. It will simply be test scores
Right.
As a total. She does not need she's not going to use their names, any kind of that information, so I didn't even think, and I apologize, I'll be happy to do that for you in the future, that I didn't realize that we needed to have a presentation if there was no information in terms of gathering student information or any types of surveys, anything like that, but I will change that policy and move forward with the new ones that way. As far as the IRB approval, the process was that the university would not give IRB approval until we said that we would assist in getting her approval. We wrote a letter that said, yes, we would give her priority here, still with your approval before it was okay. We did get the IRB approval. There is a file in there. And I may have made a copy of the wrong one because I do have one that says we received that as of 10/31, and it should be a little written note underneath there that says I received that as of 10/31.
Okay, no, it is. I missed that. Thank you.
So that's, and again, I can certainly do a presentation if I need to from now on.
No, on this one, I know she's comparing data, from ACT data, but I know in the past, so we've had some pretty intricate research, and it would be nice to have at least a short presentation.
Do that for you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I will need a motion.
Then I motion to approve, and now is it 9.1 as presented.
We have a motion by Ms. Pangarelli and a second by Mr. Sandoval to approve 9.1 as presented. Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to 9.2, development assistance agreements submitted by Jacob on behalf of White Peak LLC. To be consistent, I have continuously brought this up, and I wanted to highlight the developer assistance agreements in the Peoria Unified School District needs to be addressed. I took a look at the contract that was presented, which would be about $1,000 per home. And this area is in the Raymond S. Kellis School District, school area, so in their southern part of our district. And looking at the amount of homes being sold compared to the $1,000 that the district would receive does not compare to the value that the Peoria Unified District adds to these homes. So I did some research and taking a look at applied economics. In 2012, the homes were roughly around $115,000. If you look at 2018, they have gone up to $254,000, yet our developer assistance still continues to be at $1,000. That's about 1/3% of what our district will be receiving. If we take a consideration, I do recognize inflation, roughly about 10%. Subtract that from the 254, talking about $225,000 a home. The purchasing power of $1,000 does not do its justice of what we add value to those homes. And again, I will continue to say and ask our district to revisit the developer assistance agreements that we get for only $1,000 a home when we consider these contracts. And for that, I will, I've said my piece over and over. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, no, I know we brought this up a few times, and I mean, I don't disagree. As a district, we add a lot of value, and we need to be confident of that, right? Not in an arrogant way, but certainly with confidence. So that said, I know these programs, the developers, aren't required, to give us these dollars, so we're certainly grateful for that. That said, it may warrant, a discussion with him to see where, we may be able to negotiate a higher dollar value per home. But, as being in a spirit of partnership, I think it's certainly a good discussion to have without question.
I agree with that, and I think too, good research is to see if there are any other communities that are, or any other school districts that have differing arrangements.
Any other comments? Okay, with that, I will need a motion and a second for this item.
Monica, if you pulled it, you should move it.
I don't want to.
Oh,
I move to approve 9.2. Do I have to do them separately?
Yes.
And, okay, 9.2 as presented?
Second?
We have a motion by Ms. Pengarelli and a second by Mr. Sandoval to approve 9.2 Developer Assistance Agreement. Motion passes 4-1. Going into 9.2. Or excuse me, 9.3, Developer Assistance Agreement again for, by John Luke, representing SDNA LLC, another subdivision within the Raymond S. Callis area. Total contribution would be $125,000, 125 single-family homes, same proof points. The rate of inflation does, the developer assistant amount does not compared to the value we add to those homes. And ultimately, if we were to renegotiate, that amount would be passed on to the consumer. Okay, since we've had discussion, I need a motion.
I motion to approve 9.3 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Pengarelli and a second by Ms. Stone. Motion passes 4-1. Thank you very much for your time. Now moving on to 10.1, consideration of revision of number 1 of the Maintenance and Operations District Additional Assistance and Classroom Site Fund budgets for fiscal year 2018-2019. Ms. Michelle Myers. We received your presentation earlier, so I do appreciate that.
Thank you. Good evening again. President Ceja Martinez, members of the Governing Board, Mrs. Pallas Thompson. I do not have any additional comments to add to the prior presentation. Administration does recommend that the Governing Board approve budget revision number 1 for fiscal year 2019.
And I need a motion.
Mrs. Ceja Martinez, I move to approve revision number 1 to the Maintenance and Operations District Additional Assistance and Classroom Site Fund budgets for fiscal year 18-19.
Second?
We have a motion by Ms. Connect, a second by Mr. Sandoval. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Moving on to 10.2, consideration and adoption of the Peoria Unified Strategic Plan. Mr. John Gay.
All right.
Well, good evening, President Ceja Martinez, members of the Governing Board, Mrs. Pallas Thompson. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you a little bit tonight about our strategic plan. And per Ms. Connect's request recently, the purpose of this agenda item is to formally adopt the Peoria Unified School District Strategic Plan. You know, we've been working on that, executing it now for some months, but probably it's a good idea to formally adopt it. And so that's what we're here to do. My intent this evening is to briefly review the steps we've taken over the past several months, focusing on the strategic plan framework, to touch on institutionalization of the planning process, and to briefly touch on our next steps. Now, I'll end with staff's recommendation that the board formally adopt this year's strategic plan. So as you know, we started this journey back in February 24th, excuse me, in this room, I believe. No, yeah, it was in this room, I think, on a Saturday. At that point, we discussed a 6-step strategic planning process. We did a number of exercises that board members participated in, and I think some of the most significant of those was, the first one of which was the acknowledgement of the community as the ultimate judge of the quality of the school district. That's a critical step in any strategic planning process, is to figure out who does it matter to anyway. And in our case, it's the community. They decide whether we're doing a good job, and they do that by sending their kids to our schools. We also, through a really good, I think, collaborative process, defined what we call the 4 strategic perspectives, which collectively are the lens through and by which the community judges our work and which forms the framework for our strategic plan. After a status update to the board on March 15th, which basically said we're up and running and we're starting to do the work, we conducted an executive council retreat in June, on the 4th of June, which we decided to implement what we're calling a transition strategic plan, or an 18-month plan. The reason for that is, as you'll recall, we were still in a little bit of an uncertain place with regard to who our superintendent would be ultimately and exactly what those strategic directions ought to be. So rather than try to do a very long-range plan, we said, let's do a plan to get us through the 18 months, which that 18-month period starting in February takes us to about at the start of the next school year. And so that's what we designed, that's what we built at that Executive Council retreat. Part of building that plan was development identification of about 16 or so projects, strategic projects. After that, on the 7th of June, just a few days later, we took all that work to an all-administrator workshop where we solicited feedback on the work that we had done and got some very useful information fleshing out the idea of those projects. Subsequent to that, at the executive level, we sat down and decided which of those projects we felt should be on our plate. Were we biting off more than we could chew, et cetera? We refined all that and landed on about 12 projects that we will complete by the 1st of August. We updated the board on that work on the 14th of June, and then we conducted a community engagement forum on the 20th of September, at which we shared with the community what we're doing with this plan, the framework itself, as well as some of the projects that we have underway as part of that project, and got a tremendous amount of really important feedback. Now, what I'm not talking about and what you don't see up there are the actual projects themselves. I'm not going to take the time to do that tonight, but I do want to point out that many of those projects started way back in February or even earlier than that, particularly in the area of our student success, also in terms of cybersecurity work that we're doing, some of the work that Ms. Myers is doing in the budget area. So that work was underway. We added to that the additional projects that we felt were of strategic nature, and that work is well underway. Most of the projects have started. Some, on purpose, will start in the second half of this year. And as I said, we look forward to completing all of those by the 1st of August. I did want to go back and touch a little bit more on this idea of the community's evaluative lens. And so one of the things I wanted to point out is that we're really proud of this graphic. Our awesome communications department developed this for us, and I know you've seen it many, many times since we developed it. And of course, it encompasses our 4 strategic perspectives: student success, safety and well-being, stewardship of community resources, and community connection. There's a definition for each of those in that box. A little hard to read here, and I've got a slide that just reviews that really quickly. But you've seen a number of our staff in presentations refer to this graphic, and they typically, what they're doing is they're showing how the content of their presentation aligns with our strategic plan. In fact, Ms. Myers did that this evening as she was doing the budget revision presentation. So I want to point out here that that's not just paying homage to a symbol. It's very important that what we're seeing here is really a change in the culture of how we do the work that we do here in the district. So we always want to make sure that the important work that we're doing, the important work that we bring to you for decisions and direction is always aligned to our strategic plan. That really is a change in culture, and I think it's very, very important. You'll hear these 4 areas referred to from time to time as areas or pillars or whatever. All those words work, but it's important for us to remember, always to remember, that this is how our community will decide if we're doing a good job or not. I did want to bring the definitions. You all have seen them, participated in helping us refine them a bit. I won't go through each one of them, but I wanted to make sure that for the community's sake that they were up there and readable if they chose to do so. I talked also, when we started back in February, about the fact that the strategic plan isn't just a project, and it's not just an activity to create a book that's got a plan in it, but it's really about creating a process that's ongoing. So it's about the mindset of doing strategic planning. So one of the things that we've done is we've crafted a new governing board policy that we will bring to you for your consideration early next calendar year, and it will be called Strategic Planning Goals and Objectives. Now, this is goals and objectives for the process of strategic planning, and it will do the things that you see in those bullets, establish the governing board's commitment to strategic planning as an ongoing process. It gives direction to the superintendent to implement and maintain a strategic planning program, sets governing board objectives with respect to strategic planning, and it will include our 4 strategic perspectives. I think that's an important point because projects will come and go as we develop iterations of the strategic plan. But that framework that we've developed, we believe, will stand the test of time and be with us for years. And so that policy, as I said, now, the ASBA policy manual does not really touch on strategic planning at all. I think that's a miss. But nonetheless, we have the ability to create our own policy where we see fit. So this is a new policy. Maybe it'll be unique to Peoria Unified School District. Maybe someday it'll become part of the ASBA policy manual. However, there is a policy that exists today called Governing Board Policy A, and its name is District Mission, Vision, and Value Statements. That's part of the ASBA policy manual. Ours is in great need of being updated. And one of the things that it does, which is curious, beyond the obvious, stating the district's mission, vision, and value statements, those should be reconsidered from time to time. On top of that, for some reason, it includes strategic goals. And those change. And so we will come to you with a revision along with the new policy sometime early next calendar year and for your consideration and hopefully approval. So it's time now to start work on a 5-year strategic plan that would govern, it's hard to believe, fiscal year 2020 through 2024. I can't believe it's that far into the century, but that's what the time frame will be. We are currently forming our strategic planning team to address that work. In fact, we have a kind of a planning meeting this Thursday afternoon. We'll be talking about that. We're going to be engaging staff at this level, at all levels of the organization. So we'll have some teachers, some building administration, some coaches, some curriculum people, myself, the leaders of the 4 strategic areas, so forth. We will also be discussing strategic planning at your retreat on the 5th of January, assuming that's the date we're sticking with, and we'll have some initial conversations about strategic and planning and how that might be shaping up for that 5-year plan. And then we hope to, well, we will finalize the plan. It says by August 1st. I'm sure we'll have it pretty well done well before that, but there's always some adjustments and things we want to make before we enter the execution phase. So that's what's next. And our staff recommendation at this point then is for you to adopt the Peoria Unified School District 2018-2019 strategic plan, and I stand for any questions you have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gay, for that presentation. We'll go ahead and start. Ms. Doan, questions or comments?
Woohoo! Ready.
All right, Mr. Sandoval.
Yes, Mr. Gay, thank you, and thank you and the team and everybody here at District and all the individuals that were part of the team. It is important, for us to understand where we're going, where we really kind of where we need to go based on, what we're aware of and what's going on as a district, and making sure that we're always relevant, right, and thinking forwardly. So thank you for that. When we talk about our stakeholders and community engagement, we may have done this, but I'm not sure, and this may happen after this evening. But have we communicated to the community our pillars in
Yes.
any way we have? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Sandoval. Yes, we did. We did that at the September 20th Community Engagement Forum.
Okay, gotcha. And then, thank you for that. And then that said, and I'm sure you have this in your mind, as we move forward, when we talk about relevancy, and making sure that our objectives and are in line with our target audience, there's no doubt without question that's community, teachers, and staff. But we have 37,000 students that, we're responsible for that. As a district, that's why we're here, right? So, as we go through this process, it's always important to understand what's most compelling with our audience. In this case, certainly that student voice and that student engagement.
Absolutely. That we had a conversation just a little while ago about engaging of stakeholders. And of course, with this transition plan, we didn't have the time to do that, but that clearly is a part of, if you'll recall, the six-step process. It talked about strategic stakeholder engagement really at every step of the process, and that's a very broad set of people. So part of the work is to figure out what's the most effective way to communicate with especially the external stakeholders, external meaning outside of the staff itself, in a way that doesn't just talk at them, but solicits their input. And so that'll be a challenge for us to do that.
Ms. Pangarelli?
Just thank you very much.
Ms. Connect?
Mr. Gay, thank you for facilitating this process. It's very exciting to me. I like doing strategic planning, and it's been great. In fact, I was participated before I was elected my first term in the big community gathering that happened at Cactus High School, and then there were follow-up meetings here at the district office, and it was an arduous task, but we were very pleased with the strategic plan that we came up with then. My only criticism of that process was that when the document was completed, it was set to be a 10-year plan. And I said even then, this is a school district filled with children in a technologically changing world, in a global economy, and all those reasons that we need to recognize how dynamic an organization we are and how fluid our strategic plan must always be. And I think that concept has been embraced during this process, and I know that it will continue to be a theme moving forward, that we have to change with the times and the changing needs of our communities and the changing needs of our employees and, of course, our students. So I'm really excited about this. I will, Ms. Thompson isn't here, but she's not only is we have that forum, but I have been in multiple events in other community groups, and she has taken this on the road, and so that's been really phenomenal. And I believe internally at the different school sites, she's taken this on the road. And clearly it's been embraced because it already reflects the values and the work that's being done. It just really crystallizes it very, very well. So I'm really proud of the work that's done. And I know it's fluid, and I will just reiterate what I said to you. When we had our work study and we threw out a lot of brainstorming, the one I think that's most important to me that I hope is captured in the next iteration is that we state overtly that when we talk about kids meeting their full potential, that yes, we're talking about academically, but that this school district is also a gifted institution in providing students with choices in athletics and the arts, and I would like to see that overtly stated in the final document, or the next iteration of the final document. So thank you very much.
Welcome.
And Mr. Sandoval, just to say the branding, they mailed out postcard mailers to everybody in our community, so the community has received our 4 pillars.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Great, and I will assume that we're going to continue to use that method, as we continue along this process.
I just want to add a couple of things to reiterate the sustainability effort. Yes, it's flexible, but making sure that we have a solid framework so whoever's in leadership has a solid foundation to help guide the decision-making process. I appreciate that you bring up policy. That is the driving force of governance, is looking at policy, where we're at and where we need to go. And the fact that you've taken the initiative, your administration team, to bring a policy forward to the governing board to consider, I appreciate that and value that. And then the last thing is, as we move forward, no matter who's in this seat, keeping the board focused so that when we decide on future agenda items, that we hold ourselves accountable to drive outcomes that benefit everybody in this organization and our community. So thank you for that.
Welcome.
And with that, I need a motion.
I move to approve.
I second. We have a motion by Ms. Connect to approve the adoption of the Peoria Unified Strategic Plan, and a second by myself.
Thank you.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Moving on to 10.3, discussion and consideration of the Governing Board Resolution on Safety and Well-Being. There is a copy that has been uploaded for the board to consider. I would like to highlight that this is our third meeting, Governing Board meeting to address this. It was first presented, then we had a study session, and now we are up for discussion. I also want to highlight, we have some public comment. And also governing board members, we were also provided with some feedback from our students. It's highlighted in orange what has been added. We'll first start with with public comment, and then the governing board can add any more conversation to the information. Okay. First, we'll start with Tatum Tigner.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm Tatum Tigner, and I'm a senior at Liberty High School. I'm here on behalf of the kids who struggle in silence and because of silence. I'm here on behalf of my younger self and the years spent struggling. Statistics show that 1 in 5 adolescents have a diagnosable mental illness. Taking the Peoria Unified School District's class sizes into consideration, roughly 5 or 6 kids per classroom. As the daughter of a teacher, I know that teaching is no easy career, to say the least. There is not enough time in the school day for them to double as crisis counselor and mental illness support as well. This is why we are pushing for more expansive measures to assist both students and teachers in recognizing and dealing with mental health. While we may have people there for times of crisis, regular management and support would dramatically lessen the times of crisis in those with chronic conditions. It really is all about safety and de-escalation for everyone involved. Bringing about a culture of change begins with talking about it. I am the 1 in 5 that we discussed. By the time I entered high school, I reached a point where existing felt far too painful. This led me to my first psychiatrist and therapist. I now take a Schedule II drug with breakfast every morning to maintain my homeostasis, as I call it. Truthfully, I did not see myself making it out of the point I was in. I was drowning in school and in my personal life. If my family was not in the financial situation to seek treatment for me, I don't know if I'd be standing in front of you today. I still often wonder where I'd be if resources were available sooner. Many families lack accessibility to the very same resources that genuinely saved my life. Due to this, in school, support for mental health is so necessary. It's a matter of safety for everyone involved. We have the opportunity to change and save lives. Thank you.
Thank you. And then next, Sarah Seabreeze.
Hello, members of the board. I'm Sarah Seabreeze. I'm a junior at Liberty High School, and I just wanted to come and share my middle school experience. I am one of the 5 kids that Tatum just talked about. So when I had red bloody lines just barely peeking below my shorts, no one said anything. When I had bruises all down my legs from hitting myself with a hammer in an episode of self-loathing and anxiety, no one even looked twice. When I didn't eat lunch with my grade but instead worked on homework in my mom's classroom, no one noticed my absence. And when I did manage the courage to go into the cafeteria, no one seemed to care that I did not have a tray in front of me, that all I would consume every single day was a Lipton diet green tea, and some days I'd be too weak to even open that bottle. The ridges would cause scrapes on the palm of my hand. I would stay home from school sick and lie in bed under the covers all day because my mind made up too many terrors the night before of what would happen the following day at school. Every single day was a bad day. I was invisible and no one helped me. My self-harm and absences were not affecting my schoolwork, so why would someone help me? And then finally, one of my teachers noticed the marks on my left arm. They had me go talk to the school's counselor, who told me to stop harming myself, which I did not, and that she would be in her office if I ever needed to talk, which she wasn't. She would only be at the school 1 or 2 days a week. I would walk by her office to see nothing but an empty room and a locked door. Help us unlock the door and support thousands of students with mental illness by supporting our adjustments to your plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And Meg Starbacker.
Hello, board members. My name is Meg Sarbacher, and I'm a junior at Liberty High School. And today I'm here with my fellow students to advocate for better mental health resources in schools in the Peoria Unified School District. The additions we would like to make include recognizing that mental health is part of school safety, including specifics such as having social workers and school psychologists present at school, and the last therefore paragraphs, which would include having the district actually call upon state legislature and governor to get better funding for mental health, and eventually try to make the goal of specific ratios, recommended ratios for school counselors, school psychologists, and social workers. In addition, including a student safety review committee would improve the decisions that you make, and you would actually have some more student feedback. I know that that would be very helpful in certain decisions regarding how students will feel safer in school. I'm very proud of the people I brought today to tell their stories. I have a story as well, but I do not think I could stay professional talking about it. So I would just like to conclude saying it took me years to get the proper help that I needed, and I would love that future students who come into the district can have the opportunity to get help sooner. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we'll open it up for governing board conversation. If you don't mind, I'll start the conversation. I want to acknowledge my governing board members for continue to speak and hold their commitment to supporting the safety and well-being to our students and staff. So I appreciate the dialogue. What has been presented to you at our in our board documents has been reviewed by our governing board legal counsel, and everything is in good order to put us in a best position to show that commitment to our staff and students and safety and well-being. Now, there was some feedback given on the student. I was able to provide some insight to our legal counsel. The fourth paragraph where it says whereas, the very first one where it says and recognizing that mental health is a major component in school safety. Have you located that one? Okay, that one is in good order. That holds to be true, and there's no foreseeable, I don't want to use this word, but liability in a sense. Can we commit to that and meet up to that statement? And in this sense, that is something that we can acknowledge, is recognizing that mental health is a major component of school safety. The other comments, I did go over The concern is it could potentially violate federal law if if the governing board puts a resolution where we specifically state these aspects. One highlight was creating a student safety review committee. They may be required to abide by open meeting law, and we will be putting our students in that category. So the statement that can be accepted is the first one, and what has been presented by the governing board in our board docs. So with that, I'll open the floor up to comment. Meg, I do appreciate you taking the time to meet with me on a Saturday and sharing your insights and making these draft and recommendations. I want to assure you your voice is the voice that we're all here for, and you constantly hear that we're here for 37,000 plus students, the plus, because the interactions that you guys have across district, within the state, are intermingled, and we're listening. So thank you for your time and effort for bringing that forward, and continue to show up, email us, and call us with that voice. I know our administration is working on those efforts as well. Mr. Sandoval?
So, President Saya Martinez, so the last statement is the one that is not in good order, is that correct?
Well, that one was a specific, specific example that if we say as a governing board, we are going to create a student safety review committee, that would be a board advisory committee, and they would be held liable to the open meeting law. In addition to that, the fact that we would be discussing emotional and social behaviors, we could be violating FERPA.
Gotcha, okay. So if I may, briefly, thank you, each and every one of you, for your courage to join us this evening and certainly express your voice. It is important, without question, for each and every one of us to understand, all aspects, barriers to learn, et cetera, that, our 37,000 plus students may be going through. Class size you spoke about earlier, yes, one of the things that, I continue to push for is, making sure that we're putting our teachers and staff in a position to effectively look beyond what's right in front of them. It's not always clear cut, what's going on in a student's mind and their life. So we need to give them that opportunity to establish that level of connection with their students. So when they do see a change, whether it be physical or even emotionally, they see it very quickly, and then we have a process to make sure that we address it. Like Ms. Saya Martinez stated, it is very important to us to understand the voice of the students. You are why we are here, and without that knowledge and us having an ear and listening first to understand, what your major, I guess, most compelling issues, even successes, right, are out there. We are doing a disservice if we don't have an open ear to that, to you. So that said, Megan, again, I appreciate the time, that, the meeting that, we had a couple weeks ago. And again, I appreciate, the courage, again, for you to come up here and share your voice and speak, about this very critical, component to student success. Now, as you take a look at our strategic plan, it does talk about, student success. It talks about, certainly health and well-being, as one of the pillars, if I mentioned that second one correctly. So it is top of mind without question. For me, based on the feedback that we received from our legal counsel, I'm certainly in support, of the resolution as it sits in front of me here with your additions. Minus those, legal counsel certainly advice.
Thank you. Ms. Stone?
I would like to say that if you look back over some of the governing board meetings that we've had, we have brought up the issue of more counselors, psychologists, and there isn't any money. So, you know that. It breaks my heart to think of the pain that you have gone through and that many other students are going through. I think it breaks all of our hearts to sit here and to know that we haven't got the money to hire a psychologist for every school. I'm glad to see you here, because that's one of the biggest steps in getting help, is being able to speak. I know how it feels to sit in the dark and you don't feel like you can communicate. You're screaming, but you can't get it out. I think you guys are probably pushing a lot of awareness in the schools amongst each other, and try to notice the things that are going on with each other. That's a big deal, because peer recognition, and you know as well as I do that it's sometimes it's the peers that have caused the problems. And working with your peers, I would like to hire all these people you've recommended. I really would. And I think I speak for every last person sitting up here that we would do that in a heartbeat. I think I want to say thank you to you for reaching out to each other.
You can have it.
And say, please continue to do that. And the governing board is going to do whatever we're legally allowed to do for this situation. So thank you so much for being here tonight. And God bless you.
Ms. Pangarelli?
No, I just want to also say thank you very much for having the courage to come here and speak to the governing board. We really appreciate it. I have no problems with anything in the present form, minus what our lawyer says.
Thank you. Ms. Connect?
Thanks for coming, ladies. Really appreciate what you have to say and what you've had to offer, and I do apologize for missing the meeting. Anyway, I apologize for that. Some of the suggestions that I had made before are included here, so I know that my message was carried, and I appreciate that. The one that's missing that I would still like to consider adding is when we talk about whose responsibility this is, if, of course, the school district and our employees accept that responsibility to keep our kids safe and well. And then we list our community, local and state public agencies, policymakers at local, state, and federal levels. And I had suggested and would like to ask my board members if we might include families there, because it's very important that families are aware of what's going on at school and what's going on in their children's lives, so that they can be a conduit of information for us, so we can help our students who need it to get the services they need. And so I would like to add families into the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th paragraph.
Is it the last whereas?
It is the last whereas.
Okay. Support from the community, is it support from the families, community? So we list families first?
Mhm.
So,
I'd like to propose that. And then the second thing I'd like to bring up for consideration is, this is clearly a call for, like Judy mentioned, greater funding. And like you acknowledged, that needs to come from the state level, and that's reflected in the therefore that is in there. So I'm wondering if a pairing of one of the whereases is that Arizona has, if not the highest, one of the highest ratios of counselors to students in the country at 924 to 1. And that's some data that backs up the call for more.
So where would you consider that? So when I look at the whereas, the last one, it does highlight a generality of policymakers, state and federal levels. So I know the students had identified specific legislator and governor, which I would state that state and federal levels would include that statement in a generality. But your specific statement, Ms. Connect, where would we consider that for discussion?
Well, the whereases make a case for the conditions that call for the therefores, and I believe that one of the conditions is the high ratio that exists in the state of Arizona, and I would just give it its own whereas, and I don't care where it is in line. But I think it's a valid thing. And then lastly, and this doesn't need to go in the document itself, but just something to think about, I know it's something that I have brought up again and again, is when we talk about counselors as they exist today, we put the roles and responsibilities on especially our high school counselors, of scheduling and social and emotional. And to me, that's two very different skill sets that may or may not exist in one employee, but I think we need to clearly define that they're two different jobs that need to be done. And I don't know that we've always done that, and that would be a recommendation I have moving forward. So that students do have the ability to go to somebody who has a clear vision of all the opportunities available to them in the schedule, but also somebody to go to talk to when he or she is facing an emotional crisis or a tough decision. That's just commentary. I would like to see if those two other suggestions might be included in the document.
So with the conversation that we've had, we've taken some time to have what's been presented in board docs and for the public, a lot of review and legal review in good order. We've also, it sounds to me that the governing board will and can consider the first statement that the students provided as been reviewed by legal as well. The fourth whereas, welcoming spaces and recognizing that mental health is a major part of the mental health is a major component of school safety. It sounds to me that we're all in agreement there.
Yes.
What, in addition, we could add is the families into the last whereas from the families, comma, community, and so on. What we need to have as a discussion from the governing board is the last whereas to specifically identify. And Ms. Connect, can you please restate the statement as the whereas should be considered on your counselor 1 ratio to 924?
How about after the one that's about our public schools are charged with? I am proposing, I move that we add to the document, whereas Arizona has one of the highest ratios of students to counselors in the country. Semicolon. At 924 to 1.
That is a fact. And if we use the guidelines that was provided on the very first statement, it is recognizing that mental health is a major component of school safety. That is a fact as well, and that's why it was considered. So if we take Ms. Connect's statement and say, whereas Arizona has the highest ratio.
I've heard the highest, but I just looked up an article and it said one of the highest, so that'll be safe.
One of the highest. I am comfortable with identifying that Arizona has one of the highest school student to counselor ratio.
Mrs. Sayas Martinez, as you're looking at this, I'm not sure of the answer to that, actually. One of the things, though, is are we considering, is the board considering putting these ratios in right now? And my question being a couple things is these are, many of them are high school ratios, not necessarily elementary. That's one. And I'm not sure before a budget committee that as we put these in, do we want to go lower? You know, do we have a need? We don't have social workers in each of our campuses. as we're looking. We do have counselors, but by bringing our social workers, that has a definite budgetary implication. I know that there's a conversation of intervention specialists at our elementary. So by putting some of these ratios in, that is a budgetary implication. We do have a group that's looking at safety and the prevention intervention right now on what do we actually need and assess. So this might be the direction to go, but at the same time, it could be limiting, and might look like we're really helping from a state and national level when in fact we might be able to go lower than that. So I know there's at least an year. Necessarily putting the people in place might not solve the issue that some of our students are looking for. It might be more training for our teachers. It might be, again, more intervention. It might be a variety of things. This could be limiting, and it could be expensive, but just sharing that.
That's a valid point.
So, I mean, you could stop right in the middle if you're resolving that we talk to the state legislator and governor to allocate additionally funding toward more mental health support in schools. That would be terrific.
And then board goals could be.
And then the board makes decisions on what the needs are
improve
for each
that.
of our schools.
That would be
Yep.
good. By the way, the first article I looked at was Channel 15, and they said one of the highest, but AZ Central says the highest, according to the American School Counselor Association.
So what I'm hearing, and let me just restate what is going to be considered to take the presented resolution and amend it to include the fourth whereas and recognizing that mental health is a major component of school safety. We're going to leave out the next one of the students' recommendation and the last section of the students' recommendation. We are going to include families in the last whereas as recommended by Ms. Connect. And so we're in good order there. The last statement, and I believe this holds true to this, when we get to specifics is where we put our district. If there's funding shortage, we need to be able to give them the flexibility to make those types of decisions, what's best for that school site, what's best for the whole district. And if we put ourselves in a position where it's very specific, it may be counterproductive.
So that would be cool.
Leave out the numbers.
Definitely having the resolve that we call upon any powers to be to allocate additional funding toward mental health certainly makes some sense to do. And then at that point, stop. Once we have that extra funding, we certainly have the ability then to decide how to spend it for our children.
So you end the sentence after counselors.
Right, agreed.
Okay, where is that one?
No, maybe, after schools, not counselors.
So leave this therefore?
Yes. After schools, right? Not in order to lower the ratio of students.
Yeah, I would stop before ratio.
Yeah.
More mental health support in schools.
Yeah, stop after schools.
After school.
That works too.
Because that leaves us all the room in the world to,
Do counselors, social workers.
right,
Yeah, leave that,
anybody.
might be
whatever
something
we can
else.
find.
We need a hospital.
Mindfulness classes.
Okay, so Judy, you're saying mental health support in schools, period?
Yes,
Right.
Okay.
I think
that's
that's
general.
broader.
Yep.
Did our counselor,
So there's
our counselor said to.
this specific, with the specifics, with the specific data, because that will hold us accountable. If we get funding, we will have to reduce the ratio somehow, and if we don't prove that we reduced it,
She's okay with that.
yes, because it's generality.
Am I correct in that the second yellow is not?
Yeah, we're taking that one out. So let me just restate this one more time. As presented with the documentation for safety and well-being, or the resolution by the governing board, we're going to include the student recommendation on the fourth whereas and recognizing that mental health is a major component of school safety. And we're going to include the therefore, let it be resolved that the Peoria Unified School District calls upon the state legislature and governor to allocate additional funding toward more mental health support in schools.
And we're going to add the whereas.
And,
The 924 to 1.
I believe we were not going to do that because that would restrict us.
So that's just a fact. That's an existing fact that Arizona has the highest ratio. We want
I would want to confirm that first on a few data sources. No. Nope, that goes. Because it's too specific.
That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah. Because as Ms. Pallas Thompson identified, that we could have trainings for teachers or administrators, it doesn't say that if they were to get special training, professional development, instead of hiring social workers, if we can't afford that in a particular year going forward.
Or if something else is more appropriate.
Yes, exactly.
Work better.
So we can't include that one, but we can include the first statement. We can add families, and we can add, therefore, let it be resolved that we would call upon the state legislator and governor to allocate additional funding, which I believe we're currently doing right now. Any commentary from the governing board?
No one else wants to put in there that according to the American, I just had it. The American School Counselor Association, Arizona has the worst ratio in the nation. All right, I can live without it.
And I would like to see the whole thing redone again, pass it through the attorney,
Good plan.
just to make sure that's my recommendation.
Okay.
So real quick. Sorry, going back to Kathy's ask on the data. That data is K through 12, or is it just high school?
Schools.
Just schools? Yeah, because I think when we take a look at this, you always kind of want to understand the premise, right, behind what we're trying to solve. And I think it does that, but by a credible source, the data, I mean, I think by adding in that level of data, further supports and illustrates, that, we have an uphill battle to fight, without question.
And remembering what the ultimate goal of a resolution is for the governing board is to show our commitment to student safety and well-being. And I believe we can capture those specifics, as you stated, Ms. Connect, the definitions of counselors, that coexisting with giving specifics or life to those, the statistics that we're dealing with. And if we include that in a resolution, what is our commitment specifically to that? Here, we're saying overall, we're going to continue to move and support the strategic plan. We're going to continue to support the administration and that conversation to encourage them to do those things. But if we put it in a resolution, it's too restrictive.
Well, it's not, it doesn't hold us to anything, it's a statement. It's a, the whereas is, why are you doing this? We're doing this because Arizona has a terrible ratio. Yeah, I'm not gonna,
Okay.
I'm not gonna make a big deal.
So then what I need is either an amendment to the existing, a motion as presented, or a table for a redraft for final presentation.
Mrs. Sayas Martinez, I just kind of talked to my executive assistant over here. What we can do is, by the end of the meeting, we can readdress this. She will rewrite it as we understand, so that we're not waiting until January. I'd love for this to be done by the end of this meeting. So,
Perfect.
does that work for you? If we could just table it for
Till we
towards the
come
end,
back to the.
then we'll come back to it, and she'll have it rewritten, and you'll take another look.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Table the resolution move to table the resolution.
Briefly.
Yeah. And I need a second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Excellent.
Okay, that's that.
No.
Yep, she's over there. Perfect. Thank you so very much. Moving on to 10.4, discussion and consideration of land donation at 95th Avenue in Williams.
Sorry.
Miss Michelle Myers. And then we have public comment.
The PowerPoint, please. Well, good evening again. President Cehar Martinez, members of the Governing Board, Mrs. Pallas Thompson, thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on the potential land donation at 95th Avenue and Williams Road. Tonight, I will provide a brief summary of the donation background, acquisition notice, and feasibility study, as well as highlight the new completion date for the feasibility study that has been provided by the land donor. The potential donation site, as I mentioned, is at 95th Avenue and Williams Road. That is north of Deer Valley, in the Meadows and Camino Al Lago communities in the northern portion of the Peoria Unified School District. We have previously shared that the original donation agreement was executed in 2008 and amended in March of 2013. There is also a reimbursement requirement for adjacent ways improvements in the agreement. Districts normally pay for adjacent ways work, but this typically takes place during the actual construction process of a new school. In addition, the agreement currently contains reversion language that if a school is not built within 10 years, it will revert back to the donor. On September 18th, the Peoria Unified School District received the formal acquisition notice from the donor that started a 90-day timeline that included a feasibility study of the property and documented donation closing date by January 14th, 2019. A feasibility study includes a land title survey and associated architect's report, Phase 1 environmental study, and property appraisal. Other issues considered during the feasibility study includes the status of adjacent ways work completed to date, subject to reimbursement, and the identification of excess soil above original buildable grade. Due to the excess soil on the school site parcel and pending actions to clear the soil by the developer and home builder, the feasibility study timeframe is now being extended from December 14th, 2018 as a conclusion date to January 31st, 2019 to allow the district adequate time to address the excess soil that is on the potential donation parcel with the donor and to coordinate a resolution for the soil removal. Administration will bring the pending land donation back to the governing board in late January with the final report of our feasibility study and the resolution of the soil that needs to be removed from the parcel. This concludes the land donation update. At this time, administration is available to answer your questions.
Thank you. And we'll go ahead and start with public comment. Ms. Julie Garrettson. That's how the list is given.
Good evening, President Cehar Martinez, members of the board, Mrs. Pallas Thompson. My name is Julie Garrettson, and I am a parent of at Sunset Heights and Liberty High School. I urge you to be proactive and accept this land donation in the Meadows and spend the approximately $500,000 for adjacent ways. The building of new homes will not stop. The students will come and PUSD must have land to build schools so these students can attend school in our district. In my opinion, it is fiscally responsible to spend the lesser money now instead of millions in the future, or when it is needed in the future to build the schools. We all know that they are needed now. The new schools are needed now, but especially will be needed in the future. Our district needs this land for future development. If we don't accept it, someone else will build a school there. I was shocked with the huge gray area as presented in the map at the last school board meeting that showed no PUSD elementary school in approximately 12 square miles. I'm about to age out of elementary school. I know I look a little old for that, but I do have an 8th grader at Sunset Heights, so I am aging out of that. But as a community member, I'm still concerned about this, which all of our community should be concerned with. I've served at various, or on various district level committees, and that has taught me not to look with this narrow view of, oh, I'm aging out of elementary school. No, but being on the district level committees has taught me to look at the wider view, to look at the district as a whole, to try to help as many students as possible, to impact as many students as possible with these kinds of situations. Again, I urge you to be proactive and accept the land and spend the money now. Thank you.
Thank you. Christian Williams.
Good evening, President Seijas Martinez, Superintendent Linda Pallas Thompson, and Governing Board. I'm a Peoria PUSD taxpayer, a district supporter, a Peoria resident, and also an HOA president in the Camino Lago area. Over the past several years, our community, local schools are becoming increasingly overcrowded, and I'm asking the board to accept the Meadows at Camino Lago site at 95th Avenue and Williams Road. This is the only potential site that I've seen. I'm looking at district information between 91st Avenue and Lake Pleasant Parkway up to approximately Jomax and Litchfield Roads. It's about a 5 to 7 mile gap in the district. And what's alarming is that that area of Northwest Peoria is growing at an astounding rate. I also learned that Zuni Hills and Sunset Heights are sitting near or above capacity. While I understand that the adjacent ways fee is not ideal at this time at approximately $600,000, I believe it's well worth the value of the land. I did some research, and Mary Kay purchased land in the area for about $218,000 an acre in 2006, and D.R. Horton recently completed a land purchase for $250,000 an acre in 2018. So if the district were to have to purchase 15 acres and have to acquire that, it costs approximately $3.2 million to $3.7 million. And we would also have to develop our adjacent ways in addition to purchasing that land. So if you look at inflationary costs, that puts the district asking its taxpayers to provide more than $4 million over the next few years if we need to acquire a new school site. Many communities in the areas have also contributed to the district assistance agreement funding. And just looking at the Peoria's website and comparing it to what the district had on the governing board page, there were more than 10 communities, including Tierra del Rio, Sunset Heights, Stonebridge, Querencia, Montour Preserve, Florenza, all east of the Loop 303 and north of Lake Pleasant Parkway, that would account for over 3,325 housing units. And according to your documents, with the $1,000 fee that they've been assessed, that'd be $3.2 million of MOU funding. So all of these communities have developer assistance agreements, have to pay $1,000 per home, and those would directly benefit from a site at 95th Avenue and Williams, and that would help the MOU account that would pay for this. Additionally, as you know, we're continuing to see more development up there. That is also, you guys just approved some agreements today that would help replenish some of that MOU account, in my opinion. If we do not accept the site, the developer would likely sell that to another home builder, which would fill our school with more students, or worse, that could potentially end up in charter hands, which would hurt the district, in my opinion. And also, In accepting that land, we already gave up an opportunity to get a developer agreement from the Meadows. So that would have, if you look at how many houses they're going to build, would have been $1.8 million. So we already forego accepting $1.8 million based on just $1,000 in lieu of receiving a $3 million school site. And as you know, there are many charters in the area, so I don't see it being very hard for one to work with that developer to get in there. And that would, as you know, also charters, they typically take our regular ed students and they leave us with some of our most vulnerable students that cost more in ADM to fund. So we'd be left in place with some of our most vulnerable students that our funding as taxpayers would have to pay for. So I ask you to please prepare this district for tomorrow and help prepare our taxpayers for the future. I don't want a higher burden than I do now. So please accept the site at 95th and Williams. Again, the developers have contributed more than $3.2 million in existing agreements, and a future site would be more than $3 million. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Casey Franklin?
Good evening, President Ceja Martinez, members of the Governing Board, and Superintendent Pallas Thompson. I'm here this evening to provide some feedback regarding the proposed Meadows land donation. Peoria Unified School District has a long tradition of providing community schools. We are sorely lacking in this key element of our district in the fastest growing portion of our community, the area north of Deer Valley Road. In fact, we have only one elementary and one high school campus north of Deer Valley Road and east of the Loop 303. That same high school and only 2 additional elementary school campuses serve the entire growing northwest Peoria area. Based on economic projections shared by the district, these campuses could become home to nearly 10,000 new students in the next 5 to 10 years. Those students will need schools to attend, and as trends have shown, if we do not plan for them, others will. Our community has also placed a high value on our fiscal responsibility. While the cost of property acquisition now may seem high, it pales in comparison to the millions that the same plot will cost in a few years when we're desperately trying to catch up with the growth that's already happening. This also assumes that the space will still be available and not consumed for other purposes. Though our bond did fail and we may not be able to build immediately, the needs of our community have not changed and will only continue to grow. Acceptance of this donation is an investment in our future and the legacy we will leave behind. I strongly urge the board to accept this land donation as proposed. Thank you.
Ms. Coriandrio.
Good evening, President Ceja Martinez and members of the board, Superintendent. I'm going to be talking to y'all a lot pretty soon here, but I too just wanted to share my passion, my ideas about this land donation opportunity for our district. Acceptance, and I'm basically echoing what folks have already said, but just trying to bring it home. Acceptance of this land donation will allow for our district to offer new families and children the opportunity to be part of Peoria's tradition of excellence as a unified school district. It'll provide a connection between all sections of the district and pave the way for continued growth to meet the educational needs of a growing student population. Mr. Moss's presentation last week was brilliant, I thought, just showing and really pointing that out, that we really want to stay connected as a district and as a community, and we have an obligation to do so. It's also cost effective. It's estimated that the cost of land is $130,000 to $150,000 per acre, and we would be getting 16 acres for approximately, well, a little over $500,000. As said before, this will be significantly costlier later. It's also advantageous if we decide to pursue another bond because the district owns this land and is prepared to build right away. This successful passage of a bond will support the entire district, so this would be helpful if we were to move forward with another bond because it would show that we can create action here and also serve the rest of our needs. Nearby schools are full. Frontier had 200 new students this year, putting them over 1,000. Sunset Heights has been at capacity, and Zuni Hills has been at capacity as well. If we don't acquire the land, we will leave yet another opportunity for charter school to move in. They don't always provide the opportunities for all the students like we can, and they often leave our district with stranded costs, which doesn't help our overall budget. The city of Peoria is a good partner, and there's an inclination that they will step up and help us to work on a very good shared use agreement and other possible innovations with the park and potentially with the school, depending on what the community wants to do with that facility. So there's some definite opportunity there to make sure that this is a facility that the entire community can benefit from. And just finally, we have a responsibility to provide these new families that are already there, mind you, with a neighborhood school that serves the needs of all students. Let's capitalize on this energy of these growing and new families and do the right thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Governing board members, are there any other comments?
I can't improve on what you all said. Thank you very much. I'm not going to be here for the decision, and I regret that. But I think this is a big decision for the future of the school district, and I hope that everybody understands the ramifications of whether or not we move forward to expand the Peoria Unified School District and all the assets it brings to our community, to more neighborhoods in the north. One time saw a speaker talk, it was at ASBA, talk about everything in life is like a tomato plant. You're either growing or you're dying. And I hope that this board and the future iteration of the board and administration accepts the challenge to keep growing this school district in every way, to meet the needs and provide the choice for a quality district school in that community up in North Peoria. Good luck to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Real quick, thank you. No, I appreciate everybody, again, using this time to express your voice. Again, it is important for us to hear different views, certainly from different lenses, without question. We take a look at investments, they have common characteristics around predictability, safety, and a return, right? Predictability, certainly, we know what's going on, in our communities in the city of Peoria, in those areas. We are realizing growth. From a safety regard, we talk about our classroom sizes and some of those schools that are certainly, busting at the seams, I apologize. It's our commitment to public education as a district and our vision and mission, in and around every student, every day. We talked about a strategic plan and how it's going to adapt, to all aspects of the district. In this case, it's certainly our growth. So, in an effort to maintain what we're known for is always evolving and always adapting to the needs of our student population. In this case, the word that I'm going to, kind of focus on is population. We do have students that are coming into our district. We have current students that we're needing to serve. So, again, I've said it before, we invest now or, we pay dearly later. So thank you again, for expressing your voice.
Ms. Stone?
Ms. Myers, I do have one question. It is, the charter schools do not take special needs children as a general rule. So my question is, are those special needs children being bused to current PUSD schools at this time?
President Ceja Martinez, Mrs. Doan, if I may, I'd like to defer to our Deputy Superintendent to speak specifically to our special education population of students.
Madam President, Board Member Doan, every student who lives within the boundary of the Peoria Unified School District between the ages of 3 and 22 who qualify for special education services are guaranteed that those services will be provided, whether they're at their local neighborhood school or if we need to provide transportation to another school in our district, we do that. Or if we need to send the student outside of our district, we provide that transportation as well. So to answer your question, we have boundaries for each of our schools, and wherever a student resides within that school boundary, we work to provide those services there. Does that answer your question, Mrs. Doan?
I think so. Do the northern schools, the boundaries just extend all the way up at this point?
I'm sorry, Mrs. Doan, I couldn't hear you.
The schools that are in the north, the most northernmost schools we have, do they just extend all the way up? For those students where there is no elementary school, a PUSD elementary school?
I think, if I may, the answer to the question is every home within the Peoria Unified School District is assigned to a school within the district.
That answers my question. Thank you.
And because there aren't many L's up there, sometimes it's quite a ride.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Pangarelli, do you have any questions or comments? Okay. I do appreciate all of you. I've been an advocate for voicing your opinion, good, bad, and different, if we believe different perspectives. So thank you for taking the time to address the governing board. You've highlighted, all of you, some important facts. Mr. Williams highlighted $3.2 million is only what we're getting out of all the billions of dollars that they're making off our good name and selling those homes. So it's definitely another proof point to highlight why we need to address the developer assistance agreement. I would like the administration, as I'm grateful that we have more time to open dialogue, and to consider researching the partnership that the city of Peoria had with the Huntington University and their opportunities to remove taxes or waive fees, something we should consider. And I would like to continue to do that research on how the city of Peoria can consider those options when looking at zoning and licensing and fees that we have to have faced to. So I would appreciate that update when we circle back. Other than that, this is an action item, and it's been presented that we need to table it as a result of needing more data. So I do need a motion. It says action.
Yeah. I move that we table this item pending further information.
I second that. We're going to proceed with a voice vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much. 10.5, this was discussion and possible adoption of policy revisions JFABB, admission of exchange and foreign students. It was tabled. I do need a motion to take it from the table, and then we can proceed with the voice vote. Yes, untable it. Sorry, I wrote table, and I meant to say untable it. Take it from the table.
I guess I tabled it, so I guess I'll make a motion to untable
10.5.
10.5.
I will second. We have a motion from Ms. Pangarelli and a second from myself to take it from the table to discuss 10.5. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, Ms. Pangarelli, Mr. Savoy had presented discussion and possible adoption and policy revisions. Mr. Savoy, anything to address before we proceed?
Well, Madam President, members of the board, this policy item JFABB was first read on November 8th. It came for the second read on November 29th. At that time in the second read, the board had discussion at the November 8th meeting to accept the language not recommended by ASBA, but rather to keep our own district language. And so that's how the second read came, with keeping the language the same in our policy. At that time, board member requested to remove it from consent agenda. We had discussion on policy JFABB, and the board wanted to have the full board present, which we have tonight. And also, so the question before the board tonight is, do you want to keep the current language, excuse me, which talks about we accept foreign exchange students based on the idea of 1 per 250 students, or do we want to take the recommendation from ASBA, on a one-to-one exchange. So that's where we're at. So it's up to the board to make that decision.
Thank you for that update. Ms. Pingarelli?
All right, well, since I did ask for it to be pulled out of the consent last time, I will go first. Thank you. Yeah, I would prefer to keep it with the ASBA recommendation, 1-for-1. If we have a non-resident or a resident student go abroad, that we have the ability to accept one student. Dollars are scarce, and I think that would be the only fair and equitable way of proceeding. So for myself, I would prefer to accept the ASBA language.
Ms. Connect?
Sorry, I tend to agree with the old policy and leave the discretion up to our administrators. There could be some years when we might not have students, or we have more students that want to travel abroad than have students. And so I think that the policy as is has never presented a difficulty. My understanding, is that right, Mr. Savoy? There's never been a sense of imbalance or anyone taking advantage of the situation that you're aware of?
Madam President, Mrs. Connect, that was our comment from administration, that we were able to accommodate the students that requested placement.
And
in
it's
our
a rich
schools.
experience for the students that get to interact with a foreign student that is on their campus. So I think it's win-win either way. And, you know, if it became out of balance financially, I think that our administrators would be on top of that. And our policy as it exists allows administrators to make that call if it be necessary. So I'm in favor of maintaining the policy as is.
And can I jump in real quick? Mr. Savoy, you had mentioned that in one of the last board meetings, that we generally accept more students than we send abroad. Is that correct?
Madam President, Mrs. Pangarelli, I believe that to be correct.
Okay.
Every year it changes, it fluctuates. Not every high school has foreign exchange students represented on their campus every year. Typically, it's a couple to 3 high schools, and it's usually 1 to 2 students per school. So it's a relatively small number, and it does not impact all high school campuses.
Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, thank you. So for me, it's the original language that we have allows, and I think Ms. Connect brought it up as one of the things that was in my mind is, what if we don't have a student, that wants to go abroad. And again, I continue to push and think about our mantra of every student every day, and it even means students coming from abroad. I would just go back to why we're here, and I would never want to deprive any student of experience one another culture, and certainly what we're known for as a district. Certainly our teachers are unparalleled with regard to just being high caliber, and, certainly all of our programs and rigorous, curriculum. It doesn't sound like, the numbers are very high at all. I think, giving the, site administrators the ability to make those decisions, with oversight, I think we should continue along with our current language.
Ms. Doan?
I don't have any problem with going along with the ASBA recommendation. It says that the superintendent can make exceptions. So if there's any need for additional, then the superintendent can do that. And it seems to me that going along with being fiscally responsible, which is one of our pillars, and to the community, that a one-to-one exchange makes more sense as a general rule, to be had as the general rule. because our commitment is to our students and to our community. And while it is a rich experience for those that go, and somewhat enriching for those that are here and are able to meet and befriend foreign exchange students and experience some of their culture and stuff, I think that it is more fiscally responsible to our community to have the 1-to-1 ratio, and then it's right in there that the superintendent can make exceptions to that. So it's not putting us over a barrel. So I just think it's more fiscally responsible.
Mr. Savoy, I apologize. Looking at, so the current language refers to exceptions may be made by the superintendent. Is that statement also in the ASBA language somewhere?
Yeah, it's not in the red. It's not changed.
Madam President, Mr. Sandoval, you're correct. In the current language, that exception is written in there. If you look at the red, which really the reason why ASBA is recommending that is it aligns to the Arizona Revised Statute 15823. If you read the following program, the following paragraph is repetitive, but if you look at the next paragraph, when authorized by the superintendent or superintendent's designee, students sponsored by a district-approved foreign exchange organization may be enrolled in the district. So if we keep that paragraph in there as well, then to Mrs. Doan's point, superintendent does have that flexibility. I don't know if that's in conflict with what the ASBA's language is saying. Interestingly, on the Arizona Revised Statute, subsection D basically says the governing board may admit non-resident foreign students without tuition, and then subsection E provides guidance to boards may impose this one-to-one exchange. So the board has total flexibility here. You could implement the one-to-one exchange. If you leave that paragraph when authorized by the superintendent, that would give the superintendent that flexibility. If there was a case where we had a request from one sponsoring organization of a student coming from out of the country, does the superintendent want to make that exception? So there's flexibility for the board. The whole key here is that we won't charge tuition of that foreign exchange student. Is really.
Mrs. Ceja Martinez. Also, isn't the binding part of the law the part about J-1 visa?
Madam President, Mrs. Connect, that's correct. They have to have the J-1 visa. They have to have a sponsoring organization. And then that family that's hosting the child works with that organization with our school district to process and get them admitted into our system.
So even if we accepted the recommendations of the School Boards Association, while the J-1 visa part of the law is binding, there is still flexibility in either direction based on the superintendent.
Right.
In that case, we can go with the ASBA, because the visa is not flexible.
Right. I agree.
So we might as well.
I appreciate the dialogue and everybody putting their input. I'm a big proponent of inclusion, and this would definitely give that insight, but ultimately upholding the law and the J-1 visa, Ms. Connect, you bringing to the forefront. And Ms. Doan highlighting that our superintendent ultimately does have the ability to make those final decisions. I would agree to support the recommendation as presented by ASBA.
So I move to approve. Recommendation.
I second that.
Bev, did you have, is that where you're?
No, I was just going to move, Mayor.
Oh, gotcha.
Excellent.
Perfect.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Connect and a second by myself to approve the recommendation by ASBA. Motion passes 5-0. Excellent. We're moving on to 10.6. I need a motion to take it from the table to discuss and review current policy JFB, open enrollment.
I move that we take it from the table and discuss the open enrollment JFB policy.
We have a motion by Ms. Doan and a second by Ms. Pangarelli to take 10.6, discussion and review current policy, off the table. We'll do a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. So we have been focused on reviewing our policies. Mr. Savoy, we can now officially have this discussion on JFB open enrollment.
Phew.
Yay.
Well, as the previous one went, this one will be just as easy. I really appreciate it. The board's been wonderful about this, Madam President, members of the board, although this has had a interesting history. So it's come before the board twice already for a first read, and we tabled both times. I think waiting for the most opportune moment. The first time, we had way too much in there, and then the second time, we wanted to wait till everybody was present. So the first thing I will do is I'm just going to share what the ASBA recommended changes are, and then open to any discussion that the board will have. I feel I'm in a listening mode tonight, taking notes down, trying to capture what the board may inquire about this policy, and then we have a chance to bring that back for a second read and have a deeper conversation is kind of the process I'm thinking of. The board may want to treat me a little bit differently. We'll find out. But the first piece here on information and application, this really didn't come from ASBA, but working with our committee, we cleaned this up just to make it much more succinct, and so we just changed the sentencing. The intent was already there, but it wasn't a good sentence. So we cleaned this up, and the idea behind this is that during the annual renewal process, folks shall submit their enrollment application on or before the first Friday in February. So that's important. We need to know who's considering coming back the following year. If we could go a little bit further. This section here is about capacity. So that's determining how much space we have available at our schools, which we're working through right now. And this just says that the superintendent and/or designee shall make final determination of what capacity is available. And that's part of our staffing process, figuring out how many students will go to the school and how much space is available to allow extra students to go there. So that's the superintendent's job. And then I think there's one more red section. And it's a very simple sentence right here, which talks about, and you heard this earlier on the foster children, that enrollment preference may be given to children who are in foster care. So those are the recommendations from ASBA for changes. The board can accept those as is, or this also is your opportunity for additional dialogue.
Thank you. Ms. Pangarelli, would you like to start us off, please?
I would. So under the, on the second page, enrollment priorities, it's got 4 different priorities. The first one is for resident transfer pupils or in-district students who were enrolled in school the previous year and any siblings. The second one is the enrollment of out-of-district students that were enrolled the previous year and any siblings. The third one is in-district students that were not enrolled the previous year. I would like to see those flipped because I believe in-district students should always take precedence over out-of-district students, even if they were enrolled the previous year. And then the last category is the out-of-district students who were not enrolled. That's one item that I see. The other one is the change for the superintendent designee shall make the final determination. I think the board should have some input. The schools in the north have been over capacity, and the district has been accepting out-of-district students and increasing the class size, making the experience of in-district students in those schools not the best. So I see the superintendent and the district as making the recommendations, but I believe that needs to be passed by the governing board. And then there was a couple of items on what we just talked about, enrollment priorities, the third one down. It says that if capacity is not sufficient to enroll all of these pupils, they shall be selected through a random selection. And then on the next page, and this would be for the fourth category, they say if, it's under admission standards. Oh, I'm sorry, let me go back. It's the fourth category. It says first come, first served basis. So I just want to know, is it a random selection or is it first come, first serve?
Madam President, Mrs.
You want me
Pangarelli,
to-
that's a good point. We'll clean that up.
Okay, because
Does the board have a preference on either way?
Want to be legally not biased. We want to make sure we have a process that is,
consistent.
yes.
Typically, schools timestamp when the applications come in,
That would be, could be.
which helps, and it hasn't created challenging situations yet because we've pretty much accepted all that approached, but we recognize, as does the board, it's going to change a little bit in our northern schools. I think what we want to avoid by first come, first serve is the idea of people lining up days ahead to be sure their application is in. That's a tough situation. So the idea of random selection would be you turn it in, we timestamp it, but then you put it into a lottery and you draw the first 20 names that are eligible, if that's how much space you have available. So we'll bring it back one way or the other, and then the board can have further discussion, because I believe, Ms. Pangarelli, you're correct. You see it one sentence, you go two sentences later, and it looks
Right.
different. Yep.
That was all of my changes as of right now. Or recommendations.
Ms. Connect?
I'm fine.
Mr. Sandoval?
No, I'm good, and just tracking Ms. Pingarelli's edits seems certainly relevant as well.
Ms. Stone?
I would agree with Mrs. Pingarelli as well. The changes those were the same things that I was interested in. We have had a lot of discussion at this dais about the open enrollment, and it seems like there should be those changes made so that we have a little more upfront input.
No, I just want to make one other comment. For open enrollment, I'm happy, I think, as every board member here, to accept as many students that would love to come from out of district if we have the capacity.
Yes.
But if we don't have the capacity, I just feel that our in-district students should take precedence.
There's only one thing, and I keep looking, but I know I saw it somewhere. Employees who don't work in our district, I don't see it as a priority, and we look at recruiting and attracting our best teachers. Am I missing that?
There, right here. Employment of eligible children.
It's on the determining capacity.
I see it. Okay. From my perspective, I believe that should be a top priority as well, to be considered for moved up in the line, for lack of a better term, as a priority. The number one feedback we get is class size, overcrowding, and what are we going to do about it? in the current state of funding until we get feedback from our state legislators that there's more funding. We have an obligation and a responsibility to provide the best academic environment, and the way the governing board can do that is by creating a policy we can uphold. And so looking at class size is the first place we should start. Any more comments, feedback? This is first read.
Yes, it is, Madam President. I'll bring it back for a second read in January.
Okay.
Excuse me, I
Ms.
had
Brown?
one more thing to say with the 1, 2, 3, 4 bullet points about enrollment priorities. I think we have, 1 is resident transfer, and 2 is non-resident pupils, and 3 is resident transfer again. So I would think if we bumped up that second one, the third one to second place, that would fix all that rather than having everything flipped, because the first one is resident transfer pupils. So they're in our district already.
Madam President,
What do you think?
that was the recommendation from Ms. Pangarelli.
Was it?
I noted that, to move third up to the second position.
I thought she had said flip it. I'm
Is that
not, I'm
correct,
sorry.
Ms. Pangarelli?
So then that would bring the what is second now down to third.
Correct.
Which would be out of district with, that has been enrolled the previous year. And then the last category would be out of district that was not enrolled the previous year.
Yes.
So you're right.
Yeah, I might have misunderstood what you said. I don't know.
Got it.
Your recommendation, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much for that. I appreciate it. So that was just first read. Let me get caught up here. 10.7, discussion consideration of approval of contract language for administrative certified teachers, non-teaching professionals, letters of reasonable assurances of support staff for 2019-2020 school year. We're already there. Oh, my goodness. Dr. Davidson.
Good evening, President Sam Martinez, members of the board, Superintendent Thompson. Tonight I come to you, this is an annual event in which we bring to you contract language, any type of revisions that our different attorneys that we work with might recommend, as well as just give you an opportunity to provide any feedback or insight that you'd like to see into our contracts, as well as our letters of reasonable assurance for our classified team members. I didn't have a particular presentation, but certainly provided you the documents to review in your free time. The things that I'd like to highlight, one, from a contractual standpoint, you see we added some language there that additional contractual or additional salary or compensation would be based on the governing board's approved supplemental assignment and salary schedule. Just to be very clear with our employees how additional compensation is given. That was a recommendation to add in there. The other consistent piece that we had, or things that we needed to add due to the change and adoption of policy GCQF, we did add the part in the certificated employee contract that simply talked about those that have non-standard teaching certificates and how those employees would be treated at time of dismissal or lack, if they had exhibited any type of lack of performance. So that was certainly something we needed to put in based on law and changes to our policy. We did add inside the classified LoRa the information about the shared alternate contribution rate, just to be consistent across all employee subgroups for those employees that come back to us from retirement. So you'll see that in there. And then I believe the only other item that I would bring to you would be in the non-teaching professionals piece. There was an aspect that was in the teacher contract that talked about how an employee would be treated if the buildings were to close. And for some reason, that information wasn't in this contract, so that's why I put that in there. Those are just some basic changes that you hopefully have seen or had taken note of. The other item in there, of course, is pertaining to policy GCQC. I almost hate to bring it up because I know we talk about it all the time. We had determined that we will bring that policy back for a review after the new year as part of our continual review and implementation of policy, but certainly just from last year and years past, The liquidated damages conversation certainly is inside our contracts, and that's where the particular dollar amount is stated. So I stand for any questions you may have, any thoughts or desires of change that you may want seen for the next school year's contracts in Loris.
Thank you for bringing this forward and addressing the GCQC just right off the bat. If we approve this tonight and we go back to GCQC and we change it, how does that impact this process?
Certainly good question, President Sam Martinez. Bottom line is if the board chooses to change GCQC or even come back with a recommendation to change the dollar amount, we will simply do that, and I would probably bring back to you the finalized review of the contract language again. The hope tonight would be that with your approval of this agenda item, we'd be able to move forward in putting things together in our electronic process. But that certainly can be changed based on board's feedback in the future.
And we can proceed with the consent agenda item if it was a simple change in the future to this contract.
I would certainly be comfortable with that, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sandoval?
Nope, agreed. Yeah, that was going to be my question.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Ms. Stone? Ms. Connect? Ms. Pingerelli? All right, so I need a motion to approve what has been presented.
I move that we adopt contract and letters of reasonable assurance language for the 2019-2020 school year as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve 10.7. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Moving on to 10.8, fiscal year 2020 budget process. Ms. Michelle Myers.
Well, good evening again, President Ceja Martinez, members of the governing board. Mrs. Palace Thompson is around the corner. And I'm here this evening to provide an overview of our budget process and budget team related to the development of the fiscal 2019-2020 budget for the Peoria Unified School District. Tonight's presentation will include background information and an overview of the fiscal 1920 budget process. I will also share a listing of the current budget team members, as well as the budget process timeline and annual budget considerations. The budget team will begin meeting in January of 2019. As has been in the case in prior years, the process is going to be similar to what Mr. Hicks has presented to the board in the past. The budget team has grown, however, from 18 members to 30 participants. And these employees will be providing a monthly update to the governing board regarding the process that we're making as part of the budget development. And the meetings are scheduled to conclude in April of 2019 when we bring final recommendations to the governing board for approval for the 2020 budget. The budget process will start with a calculation of our projected revenue for the new year, including the Joint Legislative Budget Committee's inflation funding projection. We will also use 40th day enrollment for average daily membership to calculate our revenue projections and student funding. Priorities identified by the governing board at the January 2019 retreat, as well as administration's priorities, will also be included in the process. In addition, we will review the insurance benefits plan and design and related costs for the new year. During the month of January, the district will also be completing a comprehensive compensation study that will review all three of our main employee groups, classified, certified, and administrative, to help identify compensation priorities in the new year. In addition to the New Year priorities identified by the governing board and administration, we do consider our annual fixed and variable costs. This includes increases to the minimum wage for Prop 206, as well as increases for Arizona State Retirement System contributions. We also look at utility costs and fuel costs for the year, as well as other external and internal factors. As I mentioned previously, the budget team will be meeting for 4 months starting in January, on January 14th. There will be 2 meetings a month, with the final meeting concluding in April. The 30-member budget team represents the certified, classified, and administrative employee groups to ensure that all employees are represented during the budget process discussions. We appreciate the time and effort these employees are willing to commit to be part of the budget team. This concludes the fiscal 2019-2020 budget process discussion. At this time, I am available to answer your questions.
Thank you very much. Ms. Connect? Ms. Pingarelli? No questions. Mr. Sandoval?
Just one quick question. That's quite a team, so I don't want to expand on it. But when I take a look at the titles, and this may be within one of the others, but what I don't see is transportation or even maintenance. Is that listed under? Is that being represented by one of the other, I guess, titles that are there?
President Ceja Martinez, Mr. Sandoval, we do have representation from the Transportation Department. I didn't bring my readers up with me. Perhaps one of my team members can help identify the name. It's the Transportation Secretary, and I apologize, I'm not recalling her name off the top of my head,
gotcha.
but we do have representation.
Got it.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Dr. Davidson. As far as our facilities and maintenance group, we do not have a member that has stepped forward. The budget team is a continuation of the participants from last year, and interested parties who reached out. We included every person that contacted us. We also have added our Director of Special Education, Holly Harper, to represent our related service providers, as well as our lead nurse is part of the team. In addition, we've added 2 guidance counselors. We have our Director of Accounting, Mrs. Linda Virgil, who is helping me identify that Jody Terrell is actually in our maintenance department. She's listed as an office assistant, and so thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Sometimes it's a team effort to remember our thousands of employees. So I'm now happy to report that we do have representation from all areas.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Ms. Doan? Thank you very much. I just want to highlight this, everybody's collective effort team, governing board statements, is our commitment to continue to gather voices from the front line, and I appreciate you valuing that as well. So thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much.
That was not an action item, that was just an update. We are at 10.9, report and discussion on local and state federal legislative issues and activities.
We have nothing right now at this. I'm sorry, I have nothing right now at this time, and I don't know if you wanted to readdress the resolution at this point.
Yes, it's at 12.1.
Is it 12.1?
So we're almost there.
Okay, that's
almost
fine.
there.
Almost there?
Yep.
Okay, I'm trying. I'm working it.
All right, 11.1 or 11 informational reports. Again, 11.1 budget, facilities planning and construction. We continue to highlight some of the projects that we're working through aligned to our strategic plan. You can review that information online. 11.2 district budget report for the month of October 2018 is viewable online as well. 11.3 report on upcoming meetings and events. Nothing noted other than we are about to start a new year. And everybody enjoy your time. Ms. Doan, I believe, captured the comments earlier. Merry Christmas, enjoy your holidays and family, and God bless. Moving on to 12.1, board opportunity to readdress agenda items. At this time, I would like to readdress our resolution, which is number 10.3, discussion and consideration of governing board resolution on safety and well-being. Now, Ms. Pangarelli wanted to be a part of the conversation. She had to step away for a few minutes, but I will take this time to read the draft as has been updated, and then we'll proceed with comment. I did get some update. We do have our legal counsel here. She did have an opportunity to review it as well. So let me go ahead and read it as presented. A resolution of the Peoria Unified School District Governing Board to declare support for safety and well-being. Whereas the U.S. Congress findings state to succeed in school, students need to be physically and mentally healthy. They need to maintain overall well-being in a safe environment, work collaboratively with others, be good communicators and effective problem solvers. Whereas student safety is a prerequisite for consistently high levels of academic and social development, whereas our public schools are charged not only with supporting student achievement, but also providing support for mental and physical health, personal growth, and civic engagement. Whereas the Peoria Unified School District number 11 prioritizes the safety and well-being of our students, employees, and community members by providing safe and welcoming spaces and recognizing that mental health is a major component of our school safety. Whereas all students deserve access to services supporting and enhancing their physical, mental, and emotional health. Whereas the responsibility for keeping our community healthy is shared responsibility and cannot be borne by public schools alone and requires support from the family, community, local, and state public safety agencies and policymakers at the local, state, and federal levels. Therefore, let it be resolved that Peoria Unified School District calls upon the state legislator and the governor to allocate additional funding toward more mental health support in schools. Therefore, let it be resolved that the Peoria Unified School District shall remain committed to supporting students, staff, families, and community members through continuous evaluation and improvement in all areas of the comprehensive district strategic plan, stewardship of community resources, community connection, student success, and most importantly, ensuring we maintain supportive environments to nurture safety and well-being.
Would that be a period at the end instead of a semicolon?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Stone. With that being said, my famous words, Ms. Baton, our legal attorney, has reviewed all this information and has confirmed it is all legal. We are in good standing. It includes our recommendations from our students. Thank you very much for the courage to speak up. It includes the voices of all governing board members and ultimately our administration and staff and students to support our strategic plan and the whole person within the Peoria Unified School District. Are there any additional comments from my governing board?
I move to approve.
I will second that. I know Ms. Connect wanted to be a part of the vote. I mean, Ms. Pangarelli. So,
We can wait.
okay. Thank you, everybody, for your feedback and collaboration in this effort. We truly captured everybody's voice.
We can move on.
Okay. Are there any other items wanting to address in the agenda? Readdress? Okay.
I'm sorry.
I was just wondering if there are any other items to readdress. No, I don't think so.
Perhaps you can go with requests for future agenda items? No.
Ms. Bashan, are we permissible to move on to the next item while we wait for the vote? Yes. Okay. All right, 12.2, draft agenda for the January 10th, 2019 board meeting. It is a draft. We do have an agenda, a board retreat coming up January 5th. I'm sure we'll be full by the end of that meeting. 12.
Mrs. Sayas Martinez, we probably have to add executive session for superintendent evaluation contract.
For that January 5th one, okay.
January 5th.
All right.
Right?
On the January 5th? Oh, on the January 10th?
On
Okay.
the first board meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
The 5th? Yep.
Excellent. And 12.3, request for agenda for future governing board items. Ms. Connect.
Yes, I do. I know that I won't be here, but I thought that this would be a good opportunity for me to revisit some of the items that I've asked for that maybe we haven't had time to address, so that it's still on everybody's radar screen. And there's a couple that I've had conversations with our superintendent with that maybe haven't been asked for. So I took a few minutes to put my thoughts together on the loose ends that I felt I was leaving. One, I know that Superintendent Thompson has talked a little bit about peace education. I would love to, if possible, as a community member, be part of looking at what that what that ends up looking like. I think that it would be great if we continue to look for ways to articulate with the colleges and universities to improve our high school outcomes to align with what it is that those colleges and universities want moving forward. I have been saying for years, I would love for us to look at the science related to starting high school later and understanding how the adolescent brain functions a little different than adults and small children, and how can we better foster learning by making some scheduling changes. Also, maybe if we changed our sports or our athletic practice schedule, the time of day, how could that enhance learning for our kids? I talked already about making sure that arts and athletics are in our strategic plan. Under safety and well-being, I have asked for an agenda item to look at the possibility of exploring a swimming proficiency as a requirement for our students, and that's certainly under safety. And also, I would love it if this is a new thing, as we solidify what safety and well-being means, having conversations about updates to the safety protocols in our PE classes and our athletic training and practices, and that could have anything to do with heat index and have it to do with our equipment and the training of our professionals that are working with our kids. On stewardship of community resources, I don't even know if this is possible, but when we talk about employee benefits, I know that that's something that we review frequently. I would want our administrators or board members to have a conversation with our legislators. Why is the health coverage for the state employees that are elected different from that which is the state employees which are employed by our school districts? On community connection, I brought up, I think that there might be more better ways to talk about how this board picks its president from year to year. And this one is new to the board. I did have a conversation with Ms. Thompson. Maybe I did bring it up at a study session, actually. I would like us to have a meaningful conversation about what are the ancillary financial expenses that we ask families to cover, and how could we minimize that impact on our families, and particularly in co-curricular and extracurricular activities on our campuses. And finally, to give some consideration of putting, and this is again on community connection, how are we relating those soft skill development that we're asking our kids to do to our parents through our report cards, because there are very successful schools and school systems that incorporate those kinds of things on their report card, and And we know when you measure things, you pay attention to things. So I'm going to give this list to our superintendent, and thank you for allowing me to tie up these loose ends. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Connect. We could use another 12 years. Thank you.
And do we need a second? Because some of those items were not on the list. Yeah.
You don't have to. I mean, that'll be up to you.
I think these are a wish list right now.
Oh,
and we
okay,
will-
wish list. Some of them are
Some of
already
them are
dated
already
for
there that you've
January
already-
5th, actually.
Right.
So.
Thank you.
Okay, so future governing board items, Ms. Pangarelli? Mr. Sandoval?
I don't have anything, but I'd like to make a recommendation. We have a lot of items on here without question. I know our priority was to get through the ASBA, making sure that we're in compliance with those policies. But what I'd like to not discuss tonight, but just really like to recommend, how do we prioritize these items, right? We have a strategic plan, and each of these items, as they are presented, they're presented with some level of alignment with each one of those pillars, right? And, I know as we further build out the plan tactically, does it make sense to align them in that regard? Or based on, if we do it by a quarter to quarter basis, right, to help us manage this a little bit easier. So, what are our objectives for So I'm going to say Q1 of next year, which is calendar year, not academic year. So January, February, March, right, of 2019, what our objectives are and how we can, better prioritize this list, right?
That's a great insight, because that is on our January 5th board meeting.
Oh.
It just hadn't come out yet. So it's great that we're
Got
there.
it. Beautiful. Good.
All right, Ms. Stone. Yeah, Ms. Pangarelli.
Yes, and it's not just, it's more of a recommendation that, and you guys have been good on releasing the agenda to the governing board early, by Friday. It would be nice if it were even a little earlier, if possible, but I know it might be pushing it. But potentially to release it to the community even earlier than 24 hours, just so that they have adequate time to go through it.
Could discuss that on the 5th as well.
Right.
Thank you. I have only one future board item to discuss. And it's an action item to have the governing board meet with city elected officials, that we officially put it on our future agenda to meet with the city of Glendale, the city of Peoria, and have a roundtable discussion. That it is time that all elected officials in our jurisdiction meet, and the board can discuss what that agenda would like, and we could move forward. And Youngtown, yes. So all the, whatever ones that we interact with, and we would need their feedback on, this is who we have partnerships with.
Great.
Okay, and then I need a second for that one.
Second.
Okay. Excellent. All right, back to the last item that required, well, not the last item. So we're going to revert back to the resolution. Ms. Pangarelli, I took the opportunity to read what was provided with all the updates and to highlight that we've had legal counsel review it, and everything is legal and in good standing.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, any other questions or comments? Perfect. Ms. Connect made the motion. I second it, and we are now ready for a vote on our safety and well-being resolution. Excellent. It passes 5-0. Governing Board's commitment to safety and well-being. Thank you so much. At this time, we've gone through all the public agenda items before 13. We are now going to proceed and convene executive session. as prescribed by ARS 38-431.03A1, discussion or consideration of employment and dismissal of Darren Betts, an employee of the Peoria Unified School District, including adoption of statements of charges under ARS 15-539. Timely written notice under open meeting law has been provided to the employee. ARS 38-43103A3, discussion or consultation for legal advice with the attorney for the Peoria Unified School District in connection with personnel-related matters. CARS 38-431.03, discussion or consultation with the attorney for the Peoria Unified School District in order to consider its position and instruct its attorneys regarding the district's position on contracts that are subject of negotiations impending or contemplated litigation, or in settlement discussions conducted in order to avoid or resolve litigation in a personal matter. This information will be held in executive meeting. I need nope, we're already in. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we're going to proceed with executive session.